At first, it seemed harmless. Little chats here and there, someone sending a joke or a compliment, and I'd smile when no one else could see. I felt a rush that I hadn't felt in years, a mix of fear and thrill that made me remember what it was like to be desired, to be chosen. It started innocently, or so I told myself. I convinced myself I could handle it. I convinced myself I wasn't hurting anyone, that it was only words, nothing tangible, nothing that could really touch the life I'd built with him. But as weeks passed, the line blurred. What began as harmless excitement became a habit, a secret I carried like a second heartbeat, invisible yet demanding attention. And each time my phone buzzed, I felt alive in a way I hadn't felt in years. I ignored the guilt at first, telling myself that the life I had with him was safe, but not enough. I wanted more than safe. I wanted a spark, even if it was fleeting, even if it came from someone who didn't know me at all. I knew he noticed. I could see it in the way he hesitated sometimes, the way his eyes lingered on me a little longer than necessary, the tiny tension in our otherwise peaceful mornings. But I told myself he was imagining things. I told myself I was still committed. I told myself I could walk this line and return to him untouched and scathed. But the truth is, I'd already been scarred, and the more I tried to convince myself that it didn't matter, the deeper I sank into the spiral of my choices. Then, one evening, the first warning came. He looked at me over dinner, his hands gripping the edge of the table, voice calm, but eyes sharp. "We need to talk," he said. And in that simple statement, the air shifted. I knew exactly what he meant, even before the words came. I felt my stomach tighten, my pulse quicken. It was the first time in weeks I had felt real fear, not the playful thrill of secret, but the kind that makes you want to shrink into yourself and disappear. "I hired a lawyer," he said, almost casually, like it was just another chore he had checked off his list. "We need to get things in order." I stared at him, frozen. A laugh caught in my throat that didn't feel like laughter at all. My heart thudded, erratic and loud, as the words sank in. Not only had he found out, but he had taken action. He wasn't asking questions. He wasn't yelling or pleading. He had simply accepted the truth and moved to protect himself in a way I hadn't expected. A lawyer. The finality of it was staggering. It wasn't just a conversation. It was a sentence, a verdict. And all I could do was sit there, numb, the sound of my own heartbeat filling the empty space between us. I tried to explain myself, fumbling over words that felt hollow, weak. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I whispered, my voice barely audible. But he had already made up his mind. He didn't need to hear excuses, didn't need to listen to apologies. Actions had consequences, and he had decided that this was one he could not overlook. In the days that followed, the house was filled with eerie quiet, the kind that presses against your chest and makes it hard to breathe. I moved through it like a ghost, haunted by my own decisions. I checked my phone constantly, half expecting a message from one of the men I had been seeing, as if any moment of connection could repair what I had broken. But no messages ever filled the void, only silence, and the growing awareness that I was alone in a way I hadn't been in years. He didn't leave immediately. He stayed, but it wasn't the same. Every glance, every word was measured, distant. I could see the hurt in his eyes, the disbelief, the betrayal that couldn't be erased. And I realized then, perhaps too late, that my actions hadn't just risked the life we had built. They had already destroyed the sense of trust that had been our foundation. It was gone, shattered, and there was no way to piece it back together. I tried to fight the feelings, tried to convince myself that I could make amends, that maybe if I showed remorse, begged, apologized endlessly, he might forgive me. But every attempt felt empty, every word hollow. He had already built walls around himself, protective barriers I could not breach. And for the first time, I understood that some wounds, some betrayals, cannot be undone by words alone. And then came the final blow, the legal documents, the letters outlining separation, everything formal and unyielding. It wasn't just a threat, it was a statement. I had played with fire, I had stepped into a game I could not control, and now I was facing the consequences in full. The weight of it crushed me, and for the first time, I had no distraction, No one to talk to, no app to check, no fleeting conversation to soothe the emptiness. I had to sit with it, alone, and for the first time, I faced the truth of what I had done. I was broken, completely and utterly broken, not from his anger, not from the letters of the lawyer, but from the awareness of my own choices, my own selfishness. I had wanted to feel alive, to escape, to find something I couldn't in my own life, and in doing so, I had destroyed something precious, something I could not recover. And yet, amidst the pain, there was a strange clarity. I saw myself as I truly was, not the woman I pretended to be in those chats, not the playful, reckless version of myself I had allowed to exist. Just me, flawed, human, and entirely responsible for the chaos I had caused. I didn't cry. Not at first. There was no dramatic sob, no cinematic scene where everything falls apart in one cathartic moment. There was only quiet, a hollow ache that pulsed through me, a reminder that I had been reckless, that I had crossed a line I could never uncross. And in that silence, I began to understand something crucial. Repentance alone could not fix this. There was no magic, no instant redemption. The damage was done, and all I could do was accept it, live with it, and perhaps, someday, learn from it.